And nestled among the lush hills and whispering rivers stood the mighty village of Obuledu. On a night when the stars blinked brightly and the wind danced through the palm trees, Queen Ifunanya gave birth to a son, Prince Ifediba. But as the midwives waited for his cry, silence filled the hut. The prince had been born mute. The village chief priest was summoned immediately. He gazed deep into a calabash of water and said, "He is not cursed but chosen. His silence will thunder louder than words." On the third day following the birth of the first prince, Adugo, the king's second wife, gave birth to another son, Prince Obinna. The cry of the newborn filled the palace and sent a thrill through the king's heart. Overwhelmed with joy at the birth of two princes within the span of 1 week, the king organized a grand celebration at the palace. He invited the villagers and the council of elders to the royal feast. The palace grounds came alive with singing, dancing, and abundant food, as the people rejoiced in honor of the newborn prince. On Ifediba's 7th birthday, an elderly man clothed entirely in flowing white robe visited the palace while Ifediba played alone in the courtyard. From the flames of the hearths, the man drew forth a peculiar flute, intricately carved from the roots of the sacred Iroko tree. Placing it gently into the boy's hands, he said, "This flute shall serve as your voice. It will speak on behalf of your tongue, which cannot." Then, with a grave tone, he added, "Keep it close to you always. The day you lose it shall mark the beginning of your doom." That night, the prince played and the flute sang. The people gathered, enchanted as the sound painted pictures of emotions they had never imagined. It was no ordinary music, it was a message. The king and queen, Ifunanya, Ifediba's mother, were astonished by how skillfully Ifediba played the flute. They wished he could speak, so they might ask him how he came to possess such a remarkable instrument. Though his mother was concerned, she was also deeply relieved and joyful that her son had finally found a way to express his emotion through music. The king too was pleased, yet a quiet fear stirred within him. Nevertheless, he chose to hold on to hope. By the time the princes reached the age of 20, they had grown into young men. Ifediba was known for his charm, strength, and kindness. Though he could not speak with words, he communicated through the melodies of his flute. As a result, he kept few companions, choosing solitude over idle conversation. His closest companion was Adamma, the daughter of the village craftsman. She found deep joy in his music and was often seen beside him whenever he played. Obinna, however, was displeased. He had developed feelings for Adamma, but she paid him little attention. Her affection clearly lay with Ifediba, and as she preferred his quiet company to Obinna's advances. Sounds in the silence word spread fast. The silent prince who played a speaking flute became legend in a nearby village. Chiefs traveled miles to hear him play. Elders cried, maidens swooned, warriors found peace, and the sick got healed through his flute. Ifediba expressed dreams, fears, and love. But not everyone was pleased. Obinna observed with growing envy. Though he was physically strong, a skilled wrestler, and gifted with eloquent speech, he often felt invisible in comparison. The admiration of people seemed to rest solely on Ifediba, the silent prince with the enchanted flute. Obinna's jealousy gradually deepened into bitterness. His mother, Adugo, soon noticed the change in his demeanor and questioned about it. When he finally confided in her, she did not rebuke him. Instead, she sympathized with his resentment, revealing her own long-held bitterness towards Ifediba. With a voice laced with anger, she admitted that she despised him and even confessed a dark wish that Ifediba might not live to take the throne. Adamma and Ifediba's friendship grew stronger. Adamma was the fairest in Obuledu. Both princes loved her, but it was Ifediba Adamma admired. When he played for her, she heard her soul reflected back. Some days, she would dance joyfully to the tune of the flute. Obinna, feeling spurred and jealous, vowed to win her heart or ruin his brother. One moonless night, while Ifediba was enjoying a peaceful moment with Adamma, Adugo, his stepmother, quietly summoned her son Obinna. "Come, my son," she said. "You know that without this flute, Ifediba loses his only voice. He will be of no value to the people, nor even the king. Go into his chamber, take the flute and destroy it." Obinna, swayed by his mother's words, obeyed. Under the cover of darkness, he crept into Ifediba's chambers and stole the sacred flute. By morning, Ifediba discovered its absence and searched desperately, but the flute was gone. Without it, he was once again trapped in silence. The joy that once brought turned into ridicule. A prince without voice or charm, Adugo mocked loudly, ensuring her words reached Ifunanya, Ifediba's mother, an attempt to provoke a quarrel between them. But Ifunanya remained composed, choosing silence over strife. Obinna gathered his companions and mocked Ifediba daily. He had hidden the flute and found amusement in Ifediba's suffering. However, one day Obinna received the shock of his life. Upon entering his chamber, he discovered that the flute was no longer where he had hidden it. Embarrassed and afraid, he confided in his mother, Adugo. She sternly instructed him to keep the matter secret, reminding him that no one must know, since the flute had been stolen from his brother. Obinna obeyed and bore the burden of the secrets alone. Meanwhile, Ifediba fell into deep sorrow. He refused to eat and could barely sleep. The only thing that brought him joy, except that his voice, was gone. His mother, Ifunanya, deeply concerned, brought him food each day, but he refused to eat for several days. Even Adama, his closest companion, could not convince him to eat. Ifediba remained distant and withdrawn. Troubled by his son's condition, the king sent for the chief priest to consult the gods concerning a solution to the prince's affliction. After their inquiry, the priest delivered the message: the prince must undergo 3 spiritual trials in the sacred forest of Abioha. If he survives and returns, not only will he recover his flute, but his joy and inner peace will be restored. Tension thickened within the palace. Obinna, in hushed tones, began sowing seeds of doubt among the elders. How can a mute boy ascend the throne? He questioned. His words, coupled with the mystery of the missing flute, began to sway the opinions of the people. Fear and uncertainty clouded their hearts. Determined to reclaim his voice and destiny, Ifediba resolved to undergo the sacred trials in the forest of Abioha. His mother Ifunanya wept bitterly and pleaded with him not to go. Even the king, deeply troubled, forbade the journey. But Ifediba, through signs and gestures, made his intentions clear. If denied the chance to prove himself, he would take his own life. Faced with no alternative, King Uzochukwu summoned the chief priest to prepare the prince for the trials. On the appointed day, the entire village gathered to witness the solemn moment. The chief priest performed the ancient rite, sprinkling consecrated water on the prince and offering words of blessings and protection. Grief filled the air. Ifunanya sobbed uncontrollably, and Adama could not hold her tears. Ifedima shed no tears, but weight of his emotions was written clearly in his eyes as he stepped into the unknown. In Abioha, first, the trees whispered secrets and shadows danced at twilight. There, the spirits of the ancients appeared. You were never meant to rule by words, they told Ifediba. Your flute was a gift of connection, but to reclaim it, you must earn its voice anew. 3 trials awaited. The first was the trial of the wailing tree. The villagers believed that the wailing tree was a place of sorrow, where the spirits of warriors who were betrayed still cried in pain. Many feared it and never went close, but Ifediba was brave. To pass his first trial, he had to spend the whole night under the tree alone. The night was full of strange sounds. The wind howled like a crying woman, and the leaves rustled like whispers. It felt like the voices of the betrayed warriors were all around him. But Ifediba sat calmly beneath the tree. He closed his eyes and thought about the warm hugs of his mother and the gentle smile of Adama. These memories gave him strength. As the dark sky began to lighten and the sun slowly rose, a beautiful silver leaf floated down from the highest branch of the tree. It glowed softly in the morning light. When it landed beside Ifediba, he picked it up and noticed it looked just like the piece of a flute. He smiled for the first time in days. He had passed the first test. After passing the first trial, Ifediba continued his journey until he came to a strange river. The water was still dark, and the air was filled with soft echoes of songs that seemed familiar, but forgotten. It was said that this river held the voices of singers who had died with their songs lost to time. As Ifediba stepped closer, the river began to hum. The spirits of the dead singers rose from the mist, surrounding him with beautiful yet haunting melodies. The music became louder and heavier, pulling at his heart and mind, trying to drown him in sound. But Ifediba did not panic. He knelt by the river bank and picked up a hollow stick lying on the ground. Closing his eyes, he blew gently into it. At first, only broken and shaking notes came out, but slowly a simple rhythm began to form, a tune full of pain, hope, and courage. The river responded. The waters began to swirl and then parted down the middle, creating a clear path. From the center of the river, something rose, a beautiful carved piece of wood, shaped like the mouthpiece of a flute. It floated gently into Ifediba's hands. He bowed his head in thanks. The second trial was over. The final trial led Ifediba into a deep, dark cave, hidden behind a waterfall. Inside the walls were smooth and echoed even the softest sound. At the heart of the cavern stood a large lion-like image. Its eyes were pale and lifeless. It was blind, yet it sensed everything. The lion-like spirit spoke in a voice that rumbled like thunder. To pass this trial, you must make the walls sing, but without using your flutes. Ifediba looked around. The cave was quiet, except for the drip of water from the top. He noticed two round stones lying near his feet. Gently, he picked them up and began to tap them together. At first, the sound was dull, but then he changed the rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. Slowly, the sound began to echo and bounce across the walls. The cave picked up the beat and carried it like a melody. The walls began to hum with music, soft and beautiful as if they were alive. The blind lion-like spirit lifted its head and listened. A peaceful smile spread across its face. "You have awakened the voice of the cave," it said. "You have passed." From behind the lion, a shining thread floated toward Ifediba. It was fine and glowing, woven from the spirit's silk. It curled around his hands like it knew him. It was the final missing piece for his new flute. Ifediba bowed deeply. He had completed all the 3 trials. Ifediba returned to the village bearing a new flute, his presence marked by a quiet strength. During his absence, the king had fallen ill and Prince Obinna had assumed temporary leadership. Under Obinna's selfish and reckless rule, the village began to deteriorate. Crops withered, the skies withered rain, and the people sank into despair. In a desperate attempt to consolidate power, Obinna sought Adama's hand in marriage. However, she firmly refused, her heart unwavering in loyalty. Each day she clung to hope, praying fervently to the gods for Ifediba's return. When Ifediba finally emerged from the forest, the entire village erupted with joy. Word of his return spread swiftly, and the people flocked to the palace, their hearts overflowing with relief and excitement. As he lifted the flute to his lips and played a deeply moving melody, silence fell over the crowd. The music carried the weight of his trials, his pain, and his triumphant return. The flute poured forth a haunting melody, one that spoke of betrayal, stolen dreams, and silent suffering. Obinna attempted to silence it with his voice, but the music overpowered him, exposing his falsehoods. Stricken by a mysterious illness, he found no relief until, weakened by guilt, he confessed that he had stolen the prince's flute at the urging of his mother. In response to this treachery, the king decreed that Obinna and his mother be banished to the evil forest, a place from which no human had ever returned. A few months later, King Uzochukwu passed away peacefully in his sleep. Following the king's burial rites, Ifediba was crowned as the rightful monarch. Though he remained mute, his flute became the voice of the kingdom. Through its melody, laws were proclaimed, disputes resolved, and the hearts of the people united. By his side stood Queen Adamma, ever faithful and strong. Each evening, King Ifediba would sit beneath the ancient Iroko tree and play. Children gathered in awe, elders nodded with respect, and travelers shed tears. The flute of the once forsaken prince had become the soul of the kingdom, healing the sick, comforting the weary, and inspiring hope. Its music never died. Moral lesson: true power is not in loud words, but in the depth of what the heart can express. Even in silence, one can change the world. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more indigenous African stories. Thanks for watching.